Welcome back, 7:40, 6:14, moving up to 8 o'clock. In this segment, we have our friends from the Unit Trust Corporation focusing on home ownership. Our guests are Ryan Brown, who is a client relationship manager, and also Mr. Omar Holder, who holds the same portfolio. Gentlemen, good morning. Thanks for joining us. This morning, we're talking about home ownership, and particularly first-time home owners.
Yes.
If you're starting, or let me reverse, when should we start to think about owning the home?
Well,
As early as what, 14 years old?
Well, Paul, thank you for having us, as always. As you know, home ownership is one of the major goals that most people have in their lives.
The most significant investment we'll make.
Correct. It is the most significant investment that you'll make. But buying a home is going to be exciting as well as demanding. So you need to have a plan, and you need to have an approach to that. More often than not, when the home ownership discussion begins, people focus on the down payment. But we are here to say today, down payment is just but one part. There are also additional costs. Down payment for most people, if they're unaware, it's generally about 10%. And why is that important? That shows the particular lending institution that you have a stake in this transaction. You are serious about this.
And that you've been thinking about it and getting yourself ready for this commitment. And the word commitment is very important.
Yes, and it is a commitment because it's going to have an impact on both your current and future financial resources. So down payment is very critical. But what a lot of people don't necessarily think of are the additional costs. Now, you can remember the additional costs by the acronym SALE, because of course you're selling a home. S, because you're going to pay extra fees to the state. A, you're going to pay extra money to the attorneys. L, you're going to have to give the lending institution something. And E, an emergency fund. So the state, you're going to have to pay stamp duties as an example. If the property is currently valued at $850,000 or less, nothing. But if it's over that, there's a tiered system and it continues to go up. The attorneys, they would take about 1.5% of the value of the loan.
Value of the property.
The lending institution, to put the transaction through, you're going to have to pay them a percentage also. And then emergency funds is also something that is critical. Why? You just got your new home, you're settled in, but the tiles in the bathroom may not be the ones you wanted, but you did not cater for it, so you need some extra money. Also, too, you're now starting, life is happening outside that particular transaction. God forbid you get sick. You don't want to not be able to pay your brand new mortgage. So down payment is important, but additional costs are just as important.
Ryan, let's talk about the overall mindset one should go into in terms of, let's just say you just started to work, you're 20 years old, 18 years old, and you're thinking of buying a home in different target level, different target levels. Let's just use $700,000 just for conversation's sake. What 10% down payment, legal fees? What's the general figure we're looking at there?
Well, it's good that you started with your actual figure, because that is always critical. That you need to get that actual figure that you want to work with,
and you work backwards from there.
Exactly. So first and foremost, discipline is critical. You need to have that discipline. What we tend to say is you want to do a salary reduction or a standing order on a monthly basis, so you know that the money is going towards something and it's towards a particular
First thing
goal.
coming out is your mortgage.
Exactly. So you don't want to necessarily think about it in the back of your mind on a monthly basis, but you know it's going towards a saving plan for your home. In addition, you may, if you have the opportunity, you can look at family and friends as a potential source of income or a potential source of funding for your down payment. You know, it's always.
But that's not the preferred route.
Well, no, it's not necessarily, but if it's available, then, you know, all fine and well. In addition, you can sell potential assets that you may have that you can use also to make that down payment. Or some lending agencies may take a pledge of assets where you're basically using that as a collateral for the loan. As Omar was going to mention in a bit, we have a couple instruments that is ideal for starting savings towards home ownership and to making a down payment or just doing additional mortgage payments you may need.
And one of the things we learned over the years with the unit trust is that you think in terms of numbers of salaries left.
Yes.
Right. So let's factor that into the conversation for a 20-year-old, a 25-year-old, or a 30-year-old looking toward that $700,000 house.
Yes. Again, like in real estate, as in investing, it's all about location, location, location. So where do you put that money? Once you've identified, as you said, the number of paychecks you have left, you want to get that home, let's say, in 1 to 2 years, then there's a particular instrument for you, the TT Dollar Income Fund. Why? Because it provides safety, interest and access. Safety to of your principal, easy access to the money, and a competitive interest rate. If, however, you're now 20, 25, and you think around 30, 35, you want to get married first, then get that home, then you're looking at a longer term instrument as the growth and income fund. It provides safety, income, and growth. Safety of the principal again, because there's a price guarantee on the fund. Income, every 6 months, a dividend is paid. And then there's a growth element, because if you're looking at buying a home 3-5 years from now, most probably the cost is going to escalate. So you want to make sure that your down payment, if it rises from $70,000 in the case of the $700,000 home to $75,000 for argument's sake, at least that instrument that you have is going to help it grow to give the down payment value that you need.
I want to go back, Ryan, in terms of that 10% is 70,000 of the 700,000. What's the average increase in terms of the legal fees, the state fees, the stamp duties to that 70,000 on average?
I would say on average, I would say between 13 to 15,000 extra.
13 to 15,000 dollars extra. So you should be really looking at about $85,000 to $90,000 to be comfortable in terms of covering all your bases.
Yes.
Do you understand? Because as Omar said, you know, when you go through that, there are also some one or two incidentals that you may not have thought of, and you want to be comfortable going into this.
Yes,
because you want to be comfortable being able to manage it going down the road.
And old people have a saying that the homes take, but they don't give back. That is very true. There's a lot of different things that are going to come up. You're going to want to change something over, something didn't work as well as you might have wanted, or you could have purchased the home from someone else. Initially, you could have gotten an estimate that said you would need X amount to fix these things, but generally that always increases.
In addition to the funds that you've outlined, what are the accompanying funds? Now, you've been able to use these funds to amass the down payment and the associated costs of buying your home.
Yes.
Now, certainly you don't want to stop investing or stop putting aside, even while you've now acquired your home and have put your standing order in place to deal with your mortgage and also your maintenance needs, because a house also equals maintenance ever so often, painting, roof repairs, X, Y, Z. You may have a car you want to change in 3 years. In addition, you may have kids that you need to take to. So let's talk about some of the associated instruments that we can use now that we've acquired the house and we want to continue making sure we continue investing.
Well, generally, your mortgage should take maximum 30% of your gross income. And then the other expenses combined with the mortgage should be a maximum of 40% of your gross income. So you know that's what you're working with. That's why Ryan spoke about it earlier. It's so important to figure out at the beginning how much can you really afford, because you still have to save for retirement. Children are most probably going to come. Everybody now has to look out for critical illnesses. And then, as you said, you want to keep that roof over your head. So initially, when you decide you use these funds, you have the mortgage, then you have to look at those individual goals to use the appropriate funds. So, for example, retirement, we can use our individual retirement unit account specifically for that. For children's education, we could use our student investment plan specifically for that. Again, we're matching a goal to a fund. Very critical.
Ryan, let's look at now you've bought your house and you're moving forward. Things happen in life. We live in a pretty volatile environment. Are there safeguards you can institute through instruments at the UTC to deal with possibly you 5 years into owning your home, but you lose your job? So that there's an instrument I had been investing in to take me through some level of mortgage commitment while I catch myself and I get a new job to continue my payments.
Well, this is where we normally mention about our emergency funding. You need to put aside cash on a regular basis for emergency funding, and I think our growth and income fund is probably one of the best things that could provide you with that blanket, simply because of that three-year guarantee. We're looking at a medium to long term. God forbid if something ill happens, and with the growth and income fund, because of that guarantee, you have that blanket that should protect you and give you that emergency that whatever may happen.
All right, let's reverse engineer again now. So you're starting to think about a house, owning your home. The different age groups that suggest different numbers of paychecks. What should be your priorities as you start thinking about it? In your mind from 20 to 30 to 40?
In the 20s, definitely you want to start to put aside as much as possible towards the down payment, because for most people that is critical. So if you have, as we said, 20, 25, you're going to work until 60, 65, you have a maximum of 480 paychecks to go. You want to carve out at least 20% of what you make.
And the lending agency also see some level of commitment and,
Exactly.
and a certain type of habit that's important.
Correct, and that's it. It's a disciplined and planned, prepared approach that the lending institution is looking for. Why? Because they're going into a transaction with you for 20, 30 years.
And they want to make sure that you can commit to this.
They want to make sure that you can commit to it. If you're in your 30s and you're not looking to get that home, you have a shorter time frame because most mortgages go up to age 60 max, generally. So you would need to put aside a bit more. Now, yes, putting aside a bit more means that you have to cut back on a lot of other things. And generally, what's in our realm to cut back is your entertainment expenses, eating out. That's another expense that can go, that could have gone.
You got to
to
focus
a
on your
mortgage.
priorities.
Exactly. And we have experienced some investors in their 40s who are looking for homes, but they may not necessarily be looking at it just for themselves. They may also be looking at it for those coming behind. I remember once in a program I was doing, a professor who was in his 60s asked the class, does anybody know of an apartment for sale in the East? And we are thinking, well, that's 60-something, you want to buy a house. He's like, no, it's for my grandson.
Yeah, so he's
And
looking to
that's
invest.
Exactly.
We're unfortunately out of time. If you'd like more information, you can call ttutc.com.
Correct.
And numbers?
624-8648, which is 624 or 625 unit.
Okay, 625 units, and you can get all the sound information. And the overriding advice is start planning from early. The earlier, the better. Count your paychecks. So that's our show. We've been talking to Ryan Brown and Omar Holder. Once again, ttutc.com. On behalf of the entire team, we invite you to join Disha, James, and Ian for the major news at 7, and us tomorrow morning at 5:30 for another edition, Wednesday's edition of First Up. Burn us up next with the news.